All right. Hey, man, we're live. What up, Gabe?
How's it going, man? Thanks for having me on, Gunner.
Hey, I'm glad you came on. I'm just glad that people reach out and actually want to come on here and have a conversation. A lot of people, they're still a little scared. They don't want to come on and jump on here and put their face and their voice out there to have a conversation. So I thank you for coming on.
Yeah, for sure. It's a changing world. You got to have a presence now. So
Yeah. So I mean, if you want to get known out there, I mean, obviously you're trying to brand yourself. It's very noticeable. The people that have came on here are trying to brand themselves as well. I'm trying to do the same thing. It's like we're all in a community together, trying to just create a little bit of awareness about what we do, who we are, and how we help companies and individuals. And
yeah,
you do a great job of that. It looks like did you just now kind of get started going into the branding direction within the past year or so?
yeah. I started Rocketshipping just about 2 years ago, and so the first year was really just getting it moving, and now the plan is to be a lot more of a public brand and do both personal brand, but also more in the logistics space and that niche. So I probably started that last fall. I fell off the wagon a bit over the winter and decided to really commit and, hire a team underneath it and do it this way from here on out.
Okay. So now Rocketshipping, tell me about it. How big of a company is it? You said it got started 2 years ago. Is it just you? What's going on?
No, we have, I think we're on employee number 19, something like that now. So it's not just me anymore. We're probably, our run rate this year is about 35 million revenue. So we're growing fast, but we're in the third party logistics space and we niche down into the e-commerce, final mile, white glove, LTL space. So we basically we're not asset based. We're not a traditional brokerage either. We're kind of in the middle where we are a consulting group where we basically take our brokerage for LTL and take our customer service that I've worked on over the last 7 years and put that into a product. So we service and manage transportation for e-com brands.
Okay. So did you say you do 39 million this past year?
This year, well, we did 14 million last year and we'll do 35, or I hope to do 40 million this year.
So 2 years in, you did 15 million roughly.
Yep.
That's pretty strong, man. That's really good.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. We're growing fast. It started with me and my brother-in-law, and now we have a marketing hire, and we have 7 or 8 sales guys and 9 operations, and we're just gonna keep going from there.
Really cool. So where'd the idea come from? Are you in the logistics space prior to doing this or what?
Yeah, I was a sales rep I started at a company called Unishippers, and then I worked at a company called DLS Worldwide. I was a sales rep for most of my path, and then kind of got capped out there. I mean, there was more room for me to grow as income, but there was nowhere else to go as far as the next step. And so I decided to, during COVID, just go out and start one on my own.
Dude, that's really cool. And it's all e-commerce. So I guess you're at final mile, just LTL shipments.
Yeah. So Rocketshipping, we use another third party platform for just LTL B2B. And so we do have that side of the business, but like our main focus is taking LTL to homes. And so that can be curbside delivery, could be fire pits or grills or anything like that. But we end up moving a lot of furniture, and we do. What's unique about us is we offer the white glove with LTL. So we'll offer in-home delivery and things like that. So kind of blend.
Now with that being a brokerage, is that just going out and building relationships with like moving companies and guys that go and pick this stuff up from there? Or is that more of like
it's more of a tech
some drivers
play,
in your back pocket?
So we just integrate with there's a few bigger players in the market, and then there's one that's kind of more of a tech player called Deliver Right, and they're kind of trying to disrupt the old adage of furniture delivery. And so we work with them. And then there's a bunch of mom and pop shops, but our platform or our TMS called Horizon, which is what we're rolling out right now, that will let an enterprise level e-com client plug in rates into that platform. And so it's not our rates, it's actually theirs, and we're managing it. And so there's just a lot of complexities in returns, reverse logistics, people, buyer's remorse to ordering the wrong color, everything gets returned. So we end up handling a lot of the back and forth middle mile because we have the LTL leverage.
Sure. Well, and I heard you talking on one of your, I guess it was, hang on, let me get it right. Is it Freight Topic Friday? What is it? Freight Friday?
Freight Story Friday. Yep.
Freight Story Friday. Okay. So Freight Story Friday, you were talking about somebody having a delivery come. They didn't appreciate the delivery. It was damaged or something. They were just going to leave it out there and then let the people come pick it up if it didn't get stolen or whatever.
It was like a $10,000 cold tub.
Yeah, you can't do that. That's you can't do that unless you just want to lose $10,000, especially if you sign it on a clean bill, right?
Yeah, I mean, they already paid for it too. So they signed it, they paid for it, then they signed for the delivery, and the delivery driver left. So I mean, like, most people understand that's now your product and you're responsible for it. But they were not happy. It was barely damaged too. It was a ding from obviously freight shipping. So
yeah. So you got Freight Story Friday. You've got what do you got? Market Mondays? Is that
Market
the other one
update
you do?
Monday, Tech Talk Tuesday, In the Weeds Wednesday, and then Thursday I kind of just tweet and try to pretty much find a topic that I disagree with and share a different opinion, because I think a lot of people on LinkedIn mostly just say, hey, awesome job. So on Thursdays, I try to find something that I'm like, hey, I don't think that's awesome. Here's a different perspective. So.
See, I like that. I love the confrontation.
Yep.
A lot of people don't like to do it on LinkedIn. They'll do it happily on Facebook. They'll do it happily on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
But LinkedIn, it's like, I'm professional. I'm Mr. Professional.
Exactly right.
Like, no, you're
but
not.
I mean,
You're
in
not
my daily
professional.
life, I'm controversial. So I'm like, well, I got to have at least a little bit of that on LinkedIn. Like I disagree with my team members all the time. And so if I'm just going to always agree on LinkedIn, that's not actually me. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. That's exactly how I am. I come from a world of professional wrestling as well. So I'm like, hey, man, I'm going to pro wrestling logistics and see how that goes.
Yeah, I was curious about that. Like, maybe just tell me quickly. I know this is your show and you interview people, but what is your background in pro wrestling?
Yeah, so, I mean, all right, I'll give you the spark notes.
Okay.
So college football, I painted my face like the Ultimate Warrior. Ultimate Warrior finds out that I paint my face like him. He calls me. We end up generating a relationship. He's like one of my favorite wrestlers of all time, by the way. He gets me I say him, the influence of talking to him and my name getting out there gets me a tryout with WWE as soon as my college football career is over. That same month, I start pro wrestling. Like, I start traveling the independent scene, trying to build my name up. That's 2014, the same month that I started logistics. I've been doing it as long as I've been doing logistics. I would work a full logistics job at Lipsy Monday through Friday. I would usually work a match somewhere locally on Thursday, and then I'd start traveling Friday through Sunday, get back Monday morning, usually not even getting sleep, and then go right into work and then start it over. I did that for 4 years, and then I hurt my knee. And then when I hurt my knee, took a little time off, and now a lot more focused on logistics as I've figured out that my plan B was actually probably a better plan A than my original plan A.
I think a lot of people fall into freight that way, and they're like, oh, this is actually pretty good. So
yeah, man. So I can't bash it. It's been good. The whole time that I was doing pro wrestling as like my plan A, I was, just learn. I was going through logistics university, I call it.
Okay.
I worked at a really good company that did a lot of high level freight, high stress freight. And I've kind of seen it all, especially from the full truckload, from, peak season to emergency freight to disaster type stuff. I've done a little bit of all of that. And it's hard to get that experience anywhere else if you're just kind of pigeonholed in one thing, whether you're like a tracker or a customer service rep or whatever. We did it all over there. So then got the opportunity to come over here to 12 Point when they were, pretty fresh in February 2020, the month before COVID happened, the best time to jump into sales.
There.
And, we just kind of grown this thing up a little bit. We've went from, 1 million in 2019 before I got here to we did a little over 17.5 million last year, and we'll probably do between 25 and 30 this year.
That's awesome. And is that mostly truckload and all those modes in that pure brokerage?
Yeah, that's full truckload. Yeah, that's full truckload. That's I would say 90% the brokerage, maybe 10% the assets.
Okay.
We do have a chemical asset division as well because our company is a spinoff of a chemical company in town, same owner of both. And yeah, man, it's good. But that's my pro wrestling background. So I jumped in. I've been doing it, man, since 2014. I enjoy it. I still do it. I've got a 6-year-old that is a huge pro wrestling fan, and he tells me that I can't quit right now.
Bombs on you.
Dude, I don't even want. Yes, like it's nonstop.
My 3-year-old does that, but he doesn't. His dad's not a professional wrestler, so
yeah, it's nonstop. But I enjoy it, and when you got to be half naked in front of people at least once a month, it keeps you in shape and keeps you wanting to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to find time to work out. I promise.
I could imagine that 3 a.m. club is a little easier to do when you have to do that.
Yeah, and hey, it's not every day. I saw your comment today. It's not every day. But when I get a chance to do it, I definitely hop in there early because I want to be able to spend time with the family after work and not, go work out. I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, I got done with work and I'm going to go work out. Man, you just miss 2 hours at home with the family that you could have been spending time with them.
Yep,
So
for sure.
I try to take advantage of that. I can't be selfish anymore. I got to take care of the family as well. But that's me, man. But I saw on your LinkedIn that you got a little bit of a background in CrossFit, and I'm a big workout guy, big into fitness. So tell me about what you did there.
It's actually kind of funny. I was never a great CrossFitter. I did compete in CrossFit as like at a local CrossFit gym, and a couple of the guys at my gym were really fit, and I was kind of like the third guy on the team of 6. We tried to do the regionals and try to make it to the CrossFit games. I was also a coach at a gym, and I was like an assistant manager, so I coached like all the morning classes. And what's interesting is that while I was coaching that gym, that's how I got started as a contractor rep in freight, because one of the clients who was there owned a few franchises for DLS Worldwide. And he's like, hey, I know you're making 100 cold calls a day at Unishippers. You should come do that here. I'll give you commission only, that type of deal. And I said no for like a year, but eventually I was like, hey, I might take you on that deal. But yeah, my CrossFit, I was always like the guy I would try really hard, and I was a sprinter, so I could do like the quick workouts, anything under 5 minutes. I was good, and I was very good at gymnastics, so I had a gymnastics background. But I was not an endurance athlete, and so anything over 5 to 7 minutes, I was getting rhabdo. So decided that wasn't the fit.
So gymnastics, huh? Did you do gymnastics growing up?
I did do gymnastics growing up. Of course, it wasn't like boys didn't do gymnastics. And so like I went and did it until I was like probably 8 or 9 or 10. And then my sister was a really good gymnast. And so I was always around it. And so I could do the handstand walking and the flip, or, everything, the round off flip flop, the back flip, stuff like that. And then I did some of the, parallel bars and all that stuff. But that was always just for fun after I kind of, it wasn't like competitive, but I had all those skill sets and balance. And so in CrossFit, there's a lot of handstand walking and bar muscle ups, and I could do those. And so basically the guys who were fitter than me at the gym said, hey, you can do these things. You should be on our team. And that's
there you go.
So, yeah. But well, I mean, I met most of my best friends. Our VP of technology, his name's Troy. I met him at the CrossFit gym. He owned it. And now he works with me at Rocketshipping. So CrossFit was foundational to getting into freight, and obviously going through and meeting some of the people. Now they're integral at Rocketshipping. So,
it's crazy how you don't even think about freight or about logistics or about shipping until you kind of just stumble into it on accident. That's how I feel like everybody's story is. Like I just accidentally found logistics, and it's this really cool industry. And I guess it didn't blow up until 2013. So I guess we kind of jumped in when the explosion happened, or a few years after. But still, I mean, a lot of people. So like I'll say, what do you do? I do logistics. Well, what is that? You don't understand.
Yeah. When I worked at Unishippers, I was like, if you heard of Expedia, it's like that for freight trucks. And then, obviously it's much more complex what we do now at Rocketshipping. So I just say, the stuff you buy online, we likely help ship that to your house if it's too big to go UPS or FedEx. If it's got to go on a pallet, we're helping with it. But no, nobody understands it. And then the other thing is like, I guess the recency bias is like when you buy a new car, and then suddenly you're driving down the road and you're like, everybody has the same car as you, and you never noticed that many people had a Kia Telluride, right? Same thing with freight. Like once I started selling freight, then I'm driving down the road. I'm like, is that a shipping dock? Does that say receiving? Oh, I bet they have some inbound over there. Never.
Yep.
I'll see R&L carriers driving down the road. I'm like, oh, there's R&L. Never saw that before.
Yeah.
But
I'll be driving down the road. My fiance will be in the car with me, and I'll be like, hey, write down that MC number on that truck real quick. They got some flatbeds. Let's reach out and see what they got going on.
Exactly.
So she's like, what? Man. Now she's in logistics. She's been in logistics too for the past 3 years as well. She was on the asset side working at a company called First Fleet, but now she's kind of jumped over to the brokerage side as well. We stay at different companies, but yeah, she's doing it. So we're a logistics household.
12 Point?
No. She'd probably beat me up if she worked over at 12 Point. I don't know if we'd make it through the day.
Got to keep it a little bit separate. That way you have something to talk about.
A little bit. That's right, man. We try not to talk about work, but it's kind of inevitable when we're both in it,
Yeah, for sure.
Especially when our little ones asking us like what we do. And it's like, well, pretty much anything that gets here, we've figured out a way to put it on a truck. Everything comes by truck somehow or another at some point. So
I can see him going to school. My dad's a trucker.
Yeah. Hey, man, whatever. Those people are good people too.
That'd be sweet.
I'll take a trucker.
So you have a 6-year-old and how many? Just one kid or how many?
Got one.
Kid.
Got a 6-year-old. Yeah. So I don't know how these people do it with 2, 3, 4, or 5 kids, man. Some of
I
my
have a
buddies got 3 or
three-year-old and a
4.
2-year-old, and so they're like 16 months apart, and they keep me on my toes for sure. My daughter's going to turn 2 in a week, and so, but my 3-year-old has not asked me what I do for work yet, but he does understand now that I go to work. And I used to work at home when I was starting Rocketshipping. I worked from the house, and now I have an office. And so about twice a week, he'll call me on FaceTime and he'll say, "Where are you?" And I tell him I'm at the Rocket office, and he always replies. He'll take the phone on FaceTime and go over to my office at the house and be like, "This is your office. Where are you?"
That's awesome.
And so,
That's
but
awesome.
it is interesting that now that you're 6-year-old, that's interesting to see that in the future. He's asking what you do and why you guys go places.
Yeah. He just randomly asked, like, what do you do? I do logistics. What is that? And then you have to try to explain it to him at the time, a 5-year-old. And I'm like, does that make sense? And he goes, no. And I'm like, oh, okay. Let me try to explain it a little bit more simpler. Does that make sense? No. And then finally, I've got to the point where I've explained it to where it kind of makes sense to him. So now I try to do that to customers.
I was going to say, if you can explain it to a 5-year-old, you can sell this product.
Yeah, if you can get a 5-year-old bought into what you do, you can take that and use the same line with a customer, and it'll probably work. Just don't overcomplicate things, which is what I want to talk to you about. Obviously you're in the sales side of this industry, and you do it a little bit different than we do it when we're over the road. I mean, I'm sure you might do some of that too, but full truckload, where you're doing middle mile, final mile, more like one pallet's going to homes, e-commerce. Explain your sales process. Like you just got into this a few years ago. How did you kind of pick up steam? Are you using scripts? Are you doing trainings? Kind of talk through your sales training.
So my background, like I said, when I started at Unishippers, my only job was to make 100 cold calls a day, and we didn't get any training. We got some scripts. And so I kind of I did that for a year. And so it's a lot of calls, and I developed what I have in my own head as a script. And so I kind of used that technique, but I was a successful sales rep wherever I went. And then now that I started Rocketshipping, teaching people sales is a lot different than selling. And so I quickly learned I was not a very good teacher because I'm not very patient. But our sales process, from what I did, like the first 3 days when I hire somebody, I teach them freight as much as I can. And I think that's like, if you have product knowledge, you're going to be able to sell if you can handle rejection. I thought if I just taught them exactly what happens in the freight industry, they'd just pick it up and sell it. That is not the case. And so then I had to actually have a sales process written out. And so it's a good, I'm glad you asked me that, because over the last 2 years, I've actually had to think about that. Like, how do we sell and what's our process? So mostly our go-to-market is like, we use ZoomInfo, and we target clients that are spending or that have a revenue between 2 million revenue on e-commerce up to about 50 million. And we were super targeted with that. And our cold calls sound something like, hey, we work with brands that ship big and bulky products straight to houses, and we handle all the complexities in that. Who handles that at your company? Once we're starting to work with somebody and we're in the door, then the actual sales process of when I get involved and a couple other my senior leaders is that we'll do like a rate study. And so with truckload, we do sell that product, but we're not focused on it. It's more like, hey, get me a quote, or they're going to go out to bid. With LTL and home delivery, it's two separate things. So LTL, they mostly will say, hey, here's who we use. Here's 30 days of bill of ladings, right? Or invoices. And we'll kind of compare with our carriers. That's the LTL sell. And so we'll do like a rate study, rate comparison. Then we'll have a meeting. Probably our normal sales cycle is 30 days on that cycle if someone's in a buying window. A lot of times when if they're spending over $1 million on LTL, it's a 90-day cycle. And then home delivery, they want a zone map. And so they want to know, hey, tell me what it's going to cost me to ship this home delivery white glove across the US and what it is per zone. That's a lot more data oriented, and it's a lot more guessing. So, because it's like, if it's 400 pounds, then it's going to take 3 people to carry it. So we can't quote that, and people want that. But I think that was kind of a convoluted answer that's kind of our whole process. Specifically, you can maybe ask me any other questions on drill it in there.
No, that's fine. How old are you?
28.
28. So that's great. So I'm 31. So we're, kind of in the same age bracket there. That millennial age bracket, right? You still fit the mold. You barely
Tail
made
end
it.
of the millennials. I'm not Gen Z. I want to make sure
That's true.
everybody knows
Let's
that.
clarify that. Let's clarify that we are neither Gen Z. And we're at the very end of the millennials. So we kind of knew, like, I would say even you for a little bit, you might even, did you ever have like a home phone where like you like rotated it? Did you have one
We
of those?
didn't have one. We definitely had the corded one. Like, it wasn't wireless. I remember when we got a phone that you could take off and walk around the house with, but I never had the spinning dial one.
Yeah, so I think I was there right at the end of that. Like my grandparents still had that on the wall. And then we
Cool.
pretty much grew up on a landline and the dial-up internet. So you might have even been a little bit after the dial-up, weren't you?
Oh, I remember the
Maybe a
sound
year or
of the
two?
dial-up. We had one computer, and I
Yeah.
remember the sound, but I was pretty young. I never
Right. I
used
was
the
on
computer, but I remember that
I
sound.
was on it, yeah. So
Yeah.
it was crazy. Like AIM, dude, AOL Instant Messenger, like that was the days.
AOL, and
So
then I had a Razor cell phone, Motorola Razor. That was like the
yeah,
coolest
you were
cell phone.
cool. Yeah, you were cool for sure.
I got it like 3 years late though, because my mom didn't let me have a cell phone. So
When did you get a cell phone?
when I was like 14 or 15, once I got to high school.
I got
My
you.
friends had them when we were in middle school. I don't know why they had them, but
Sure. Yeah, I had one in
nowadays I don't
seventh
know
grade
when
for
kids
no
get
reason.
cell phones, but pretty early, I'm guessing.
I think obviously we'll just turn into a parenting podcast. I think that but dude, it's crazy. Like I've seen kids literally like 8 years old with cell phones. It's like, what do you need a cell phone for? Are you going somewhere? Are you walking anywhere? Are you like, where do you go other than the bus stop? Do you even go to the bus stop? You probably don't go to the bus stop.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what these kids need a cell phone for at 8
You
years
gotta
old.
stay connected. But
yeah, I'm trying to hold mine off from like video games and everything as long as I can, because as soon as that happens, they're done. They're locked into a screen. So I'm trying to hold him back. Anyway, let's get back to sales. So you'd only have a little bit of experience prior to jumping into it. And you said you're just doing 100 cold calls a day. So I'm one of those guys too. I like the quantity. I think that's good. I think that it builds quality with repetition, like any sport you might do or anything else. You got to put in the work, and putting in the work in sales is making the calls, sending the emails. So are you a fan when you were doing the 100 calls a day? Do you think that got you to where you are now?
I think it got me through the stage of like, I think every sales rep probably goes through the first stage of like, hey, this is new. And then they kind of get the hang of it. And then there's a huge surge of like, this is the best career ever. And then they burn out a little bit. And they kind of like, it gets monotonous. Being able to push through that and continue to do 100 was probably an asset that I learned, because it served me well in my career from there. So I was making 100 calls and I kind of got sick of it. If I was able to still do that now, even on a bad day, if I can crank out 20 calls, because it's so much easier than it used to be. So repetition helped, but more it was like overcoming that. Like, as long as you just consistently show up and do it, even when you don't want to, you'll be successful in sales. Now, to be a high performer, you have to be able to convince people to buy things from you that they didn't realize they needed. And so that is a difference, but you can be an average performer just by showing up. So, but we do a lot of training. Like I kind of go back to where I was saying, like, I thought I could just train them on freight and say, hey, here's what NMFCs and freight classes mean, and here's the carriers, and here's the product, go sell it. But I'm not a very good sales trainer. I still am not a very good sales trainer, but I know that I am not that good at training an individual rep. And so I have a sales manager who has a master's in education, and I kind of stole him before he started his career. Graduated with his master's of education. I put him in freight sales. So he developed some curriculum for me, and that helped a lot. And then I use Grant Cardone's Cardone University. And so all of my sales reps are on Cardone U. They train on that. And that's not on freight sales, but that's on selling. And so I would probably say that I had a more natural tendency to sell and communicate, but not everybody on my team does. And that certainly helps them learn some tactics, techniques, and practice every day.
Sure. So talk to me about Cardone. So we're on Cardone as well. Maybe that's how we even connected on here eventually. I don't even know how we even got connected.
It might have been something like that. I saw you post about it and I liked it, and then we connected.
Yeah. So, I'm a big Cardone fan. How long have you been involved in the program?
I started Cardone U for the sales team in February this year. So it's pretty new.
Okay. So we started September of last year, maybe even October-ish. But I mean, I've known of Grant for years, obviously because
Yeah,
of the
same
social
here.
media presence. I'm sure you have as well. Everybody has seen Grant, even if you haven't seen Grant, you've seen him.
I'm always surprised when someone says they don't know him. I'm like, he's in my feed so much that I can't believe anybody doesn't know him. But yeah.
Right. And I'm sure they've seen him. They just maybe don't understand. So like, how do you feel about the program? Do you like it, or do you do it as well as your group? What's your
Yeah.
structure?
I like the program. I like that it's daily, and I like that it's like this, you got to do 30 minutes a day, and it's it's not super high level, which is what I kind of expected it, but it makes sense now that it's not super high level because sales isn't high level. It's actually doing the simple things, the ordinary things every day, and you do them consistently, and then you can be an extraordinary sales rep, but there's nothing real complex about them. It's a lot of repetition, and it's actually just, I think they do a lot of right now. We're probably 3 months in. And so there's still a lot of mindset, discovery, fact finding, and learning the process. We're just moving into presentation and how to actually, close a deal. And
Sure.
so I was surprised how much mindset, fact finding, gathering, and training there was before it was like, hey, here's how you close a deal when it's on the edge.
Right.
And so that was surprising. I think it's pretty effective. I wouldn't have done it that way. I'm glad he did it. I do it myself. I used to do it every morning, and I just don't have time for it anymore. But I still train a couple times a week on it, and then we have a weekly coaching call. And so Cardone's team has a coach for us, and we work with him once a week, and he role
Okay.
plays with all of my sales reps, and I kind of sit in on it and listen.
Cool. Really cool. So I try to do it every morning as well. I'm pretty good about that. We don't have the coaching aspect to it, but I did go down to the 10X Business Boot Camp in January or February.
Nice.
I can't remember. I went to that. It was really cool just to be around everybody. Kind of that energy kind of motivates you a little bit. And my whole goal this year was to get into more conferences, to get into more like high level one-on-one type trainings.
Yeah.
So I've ran across a guy named Andy Elliott. Do you know who that is?
I don't.
You'd like him. So Andy
Okay.
Elliott, he's this jacked, bald-headed dude. He's in the automotive sales space, but he kind of took all of his stuff from Grant as well and just kind of flipped it into his space. And now he's doing phone sales in general.
Okay.
But he's a little hammer, dude. He's a ball of energy. So check him out. He's doing a conference in Phoenix at the first of next month, like Father's Day weekend. I'm going to him and Brad Lee. Do you know who Brad Lee is?
I do. I follow Brad Lee on TikTok. I don't know how I found him, but I did. Now I can't stop following him. So
yeah, they're all in the same circle. So Brad Lee, he's doing a training as well. So Brad Lee he's got Lightspeed. That's the platform that Cardone University runs on.
Okay.
So Lightspeed VT that you do your training
I
through,
noticed that in the URL. Yep.
that's Brad Lee's program. So he's actually sold all the closers to use his program. So he says he's the best sales rep because he's sold all the guys that are trying to sell his stuff through him.
That's pretty good, actually. He's one step upstream.
Yeah. So yeah, all those guys, they have good stuff and they're just very high energy. And I love Cardone University just because it is the consistency and the simplicity of it. And a lot of people are like, "Why do you follow that guy? The guy's so cheesy, guy." So you know him. Like what? It's not cheesy. He's just telling you the truth. Like this is what you do. If you do this over and 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 over again, 10 times over and over again, then you're going to be successful. And it's a very simplistic idea, but it's true, man. It is. It's really true.
Yeah, honestly, I think it goes back to when I was saying, if you make 100 calls a day every day and you can actually do it, it's nothing fancy about it. You just have to do it. And then once you get to a different level, maybe you have a team under you, maybe you make 20 calls because you're that effective, but you're able to do it because it's only 20 instead of 100, but you're able to show up every day. The other thing too, you mentioned that some people are like, how do you follow Grant Cardone? He says the same thing all the time. He's cheesy or gimmicky. Same with Gary Vee. Like I love following Gary Vee and listening to his stuff.
Love Gary Vee.
He says that he tells the same story every time and he says the same things every time. And I heard Gary Vee break it down about Grant Cardone and himself. Actually, they were comparing each other and he was talking. He's like, our followers think we say the same thing over and over because we do, but we're not trying to gain, more traction within our followers. We're trying to get the same message to people who've never heard of us. And so the reason that, we followed Grant or Gary was because of their story and what they've, accomplished. And so it makes sense that we're like, oh, that seems repetitive. But again, it's because they're trying to, get that same message out to the masses. And so that's why, anytime I hear someone say, oh, they say the same thing over and over, I'm like, well, yeah, it works. That's the message. Why would they have to be unique every day?
Yeah.
And I think it's the same for sales reps. You don't have to have a unique pitch every day. You just have to have a pitch that you believe in, and you go there each day and you give that same pitch. As long as you're giving it to the right people, it's going to be successful.
That's right. If you qualify who the right person is, who's going to be a potential follower. That's his qualifications when he's throwing out all that mass marketing and people click on something. He knows it's a hot follower right there. I'm going to go after that guy, and I'm going to give him the same story that I gave 2 million other people that are following me, because most likely if they click this button and I give them this story, they're going to stay around. They're going to buy something. And what's crazy, so he sells everything from free stuff to a pin to a $50,000 seat at one of his conferences, and he sells all of it. Like, he sells every different thing. He has so many different funnels of what he sells. And that's the biggest thing I've been able to take away is, how can you have one story and sell the same product but get more price variance out of that same product depending on who you're selling it to, understanding what they want, how much money they have, and how much you can offer to sell them whatever it is that you need to sell them, even though it might be the same product, just split up in different ways.
Yeah, and it's not like they're like at Rocketshipping. One of the things that I'm working on right now with one of my senior leaders is trying to figure out what size client we should service, because I firmly believe in the logistics space. You can't service everybody, and there's a lot of people out there that will say they can just do all modes and they can do everything really awesome and they can do international through small parcel. And we're like the antithesis of that. I'm like, hey, I want to niche down as far as I can. Now, e-commerce, I think, is going to grow. Right now, it's actually a little bit stagnant. Growth was down in Q1. So like, it's nice to hedge, but we were trying to figure out, how do we monetize smaller to larger, right? How do we sell the same service to somebody who just started an e-com store last year and to somebody like who's doing 100 million in sales or in revenue on an e-com site? And we're trying to parse that down to the same model of like, hey, it's the same service. Obviously, there's going to be more bells and whistles, but how much can we charge for these people compared to the new store owner? And right now we charge the same. And so we're trying to diversify that.
No, that's a great idea. And you said you don't really do the full truckload. You will do it. I mean, it's easy. I'd say full truckload is probably the easiest part of it. You just get it posted on board, get it covered.
We have a director of truckload, and we do have, we probably do $2 million revenue truckload a year. So it's not something that we cold call on, but a lot of our clients who ship LTL say, hey, we have truckloads and we cover those, but they just give us the loads and we tell them the rate. We don't do any any large bids or any quoting lists. It's something I've considered going into in the next year. Last year, the market was just so difficult to crack into that I said, you know what? These e-com stores really need help because their volumes are high and they can't scale their team. So let's focus on that.
Right. No, I mean, that's a great idea. With these e-commerce stores, when you're going after the guys that are like between 1 million and 5 million or whatever it is that you're going after.
Yeah.
All right. And you're going on Zoom Info. What are you typing in? Are you typing in e-commerce? Or are you looking at what are you going after?
I think the best way we do it is we go by technologies. So if they use Shopify, if they use WooCommerce, if they use these, and so that filters it immediately to people who are actively trying to sell online. Because if you have a website, that doesn't mean you sell a product with a shopping cart. But if you have Shopify, you're selling online. And so we start there with the basic filtering and then go further into industry. So automotive, we go after rims, wheels, tires, something a lift kit, something someone's going to buy and get shipped to their house. If we're going e-commerce for patio furniture, we're going to include fire pits, grills, patio furniture, and then we'll search by brands. So we'll type in an actual brand we work with and see what tags they're using on Zoom Info and what tags they have on Google search for keywords. And we type in those keywords, but it is something that Zoom Info is obviously a Cadillac of search engines and for lead sourcing, but it is very difficult to parse down to get actually the right leads.
So we use one. We use one called Seamless.ai, which I believe
them. They are a much better price than Zoom Info, that's for sure. And I've seen them all over LinkedIn and their revenue leaders and stuff. So I've thought about Seamless.
So I mean, if you need to jump into a profile, you hit me up and I'll let you look around in there. But I mean, it's pretty good. It was for us just a lot better on the budget than Zoom Info, and from what I was told, very similar in the way that it operates. I don't know.
I guess the way that they get the info is different, but the way that they portray it is probably similar. And so if the info is accurate, the info is accurate. That's all I care about, really. So I used to use one called Apollo. You should look into that. It's more of a
Apollo.
when I was it's apollo.io. When I was a contracted sales rep and I was running my own book, that's what I used because it was like Zoom Info, except for you could do all of your sequences and flows right out of it. And so it was your email sequences and your cold calling right in the same platform. And that was like maybe 6,000 a year for a user. And so Zoom Info is a lot more than that. Or maybe that was up to like 5 users, but I was just my only user.
Sure.
And so I could send out 100 emails and they were, somewhat personalized to an industry, to a product, to a sell, and then make my cold calls all within, a morning. And it was lead sourcing the same way. You would filter by e-commerce and by contact name. So Apollo was pretty cool. They used to be something else, and then it got rebranded to Apollo. It's a Silicon Valley company.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm gonna check that out because so it's pretty much your CRM attached with a lead generator.
They integrated with HubSpot, which is what I was using with it. But like everything else, all your email flows and your analytics on open rates on emails, all was within Apollo. And so It was very similar to Zoom Info, but for a team of like 7 or 8 or 9 that I have now, I went with Zoom Info because they have the Engage product, which is like a dialer. And it records all the calls and I can do coaching on the calls. And so like once a week, we'll have a one-on-one with each rep. And then we listen to calls or at least that's the goal. We don't do it as much as I'd like, but we listen to
Zoom
calls.
Info?
Yeah, Zoom Info has one called Zoom Engage, and they integrate with each other. And so all the leads that you would get from Zoom Info, you can export into Engage and you can just start dialing. It's an automatic dialer. So I really like that.
See, I need that. That's one thing that I wish that we did have here is like some way to record phone calls.
Yeah, it's really nice for the reps because they're like, oh, what was that email or what was her name? Or I forgot what we said in this conversation. When they're doing a follow-up, they can re-listen to the call and say, okay, they said they use this company and I'm going to go after this angle on the follow-up. And so, but I also use it for coaching because then I can, I try to sit on the sales floor at least an hour a day and listen to them while I'm doing emails. But doing the recording, I can, in the evenings after the kids are in bed, I can listen to calls.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So you're not the sales manager. You got a sales manager. So what's your role within the company currently right now?
Well, I would say that most of my work is done managing clients right now still. I would call myself probably the VP of sales at Rocketshipping, but I'm trying to hire that. I'm trying to scale to have somebody else do that. I'm actually trying to hire what I'm calling a director of revenue. And so they're going to help me with a lot of the stuff we do is enterprise. And so when I say that, I mean like they ship 50 shipments a day LTL, and they don't want to use blanket rates from a third party. They want to have a custom or customer specific tariff. It takes like 30-day cycles to bid that freight out, at least 60 days sometimes. You have to have a LOA. You have to have all the paperwork, pictures of the freight. And so I spend a lot of time doing bid packages for my larger clients. And then I do a lot of on-site meetings. So I'll travel to different locations and meet, one of my clients just bought another company. So I flew out there and looked at the new warehouse and then decided, consulted with them that they should actually ship truckload back to their warehouse because this one was not set up for it. So I do consulting like that. And then I have a VP of operations. Her name's Amanda. She runs the day-to-day as far as like missed pickups, invoices, billing variances, and the quotes and BOLs and all that. But we have 9 people doing that, and she still ends up having to spill it to me, which is like, hey, this customer, we had a will call pickup and the guy never picked it up and we've got $2,000 of storage. What do we got to do? And so I end up firefighting most of the day on that side too.
I got you.
Which is where logistics. The current state. That's not where I want my future state, but that's where we're at.
Yeah. Yeah. So where do you see Rocketshipping in 5 years, and kind of where do you see what do you see yourself doing within the company within 5 years in a perfect world?
In a perfect world, I would be president, and I would basically 1 week I may be trying to optimize how we're doing billing variances and creating a process. And the next week I might be helping close one of the larger deals in the pipeline, but kind of just wherever I need to be in the company week by week without a defined role. And I do see in the next 5 years, Rocketshipping, I think in the next 2 years, we're going to do 100 million. That's the goal. And I want Rocketshipping to be the first e-commerce platform that allows enterprise level shippers to come in, like All Modern or Crate and Barrel and those types who are traditionally using furniture carriers who are terrible. And they have 15-week transits and 12-week transit times because that's the industry.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to disrupt that and bring Final Mile and LTL together to have a product that services both for these clients that actually end up shipping, 50 or 100 shipments every day directly to residences. And right now, there is no platform for that, so we're trying to create it.
Cool. So is the goal to sell? Is that, I mean, obviously, is the goal to sell or is the goal to scale?
The goal for Rocketshipping is to keep it and scale it and give it to my kids for the long run. Now, I don't always want to be the business operator, and eventually I'll back off from that. But we do have a TMS that my buddy Troy, our VP of technology, built. And so that will likely be more of a play like, hey, let's build that TMS. Let's bring a bunch of transactions to it, and maybe we sell that portion of the business someday.
What's the name of the TMS?
It's called Horizon. It actually
is mainly in e-commerce?
We have it live internal, and so we use it for our customers, but we have not brought it to the market yet. But we just built that, and so it's pretty exciting. I'm excited to bring that to market probably in June. So we have we have dozens of clients using it, and so it works, but we haven't brought it to market and monetized it yet.
So it allows the customer, whoever your customer is, to kind of go into the system and see what's up with their shipments.
Yeah, and so it's basically for e-commerce clients. So like, let's imagine you run an e-com store. You're the e-commerce customer service manager, which is what they're normally called, but really they're logistics managers because their customer service is where is my order, where's my package.
Right.
And so the TMS, basically it was thoughtfully, like the idea that I had was, hey, in small package and in Amazon Prime and in Shop Promise and all this stuff, you get all these alerts when your package is going to be delivered. And you kind of know what's going on, and UPS tells you when it's going to be late, and so does FedEx. And it's not perfect, but it's a pretty good experience, and it just shows up on your doorstep. The problem is all these e-com stores sell stuff that ships small package, but also stuff that has to go freight. The freight tracking system right now in the market, the only existing system is the carriers. And so whatever the tracking messages are just coming from FedEx Freight, from R&L carriers, or from Estes. And so it's just, the tracking is only as good as what they're providing. And an LTL middle mile tracking is not accurate. It gives an estimated delivery date and it never updates. It's just, It is what it is. And so Horizon basically just created a user interface for an e-com store to show to their consumer. And so instead of a tracking link that goes to FedEx or goes to UPS or T-Force Freight, it goes to this Horizon portal. It's white labeled, so it looks like it's the e-com store portal. Instead of giving the regular carrier tracking messages, we translate them and we make it a little easier for the consumer to understand, hey, here's the estimated delivery date. Here's what the projected date is. You're going to need an appointment. It's 24 to 48 hours, all this education. And then it gives them a chat service, which is pretty unique, right back to Rocketshipping's team. And so if they want to know where their order is, they type it in that box and it prompts them and says, hey, do you want to know where this is? Do you have questions? Hey, when is this delivering? Which is, I call it a WISMO, which is an industry term. Where is my order? And it's what inundates most e-commerce stores as they scale, is that they just keep getting more and more phone calls of people wanting to know when their product is delivering. And so this solves for that by allowing the user, the consumer who bought the product, a grill or a fire pit, to just use a chat service, get an answer within a couple of minutes and move on, and never call the e-com store unless it's an actual escalation. And so that was my idea of what to do for the consumer side. And then my buddy Troy, our VP, he built a TMS to support that. And so you can book all your shipments and integrate it with Shopify or NetSuite or whatever, manage it in there, and then it has a consumer facing side.
Man, what I'd give to be able to write code, right? Be able to write code.
I always thought it was like zeros and ones. I had no idea what code was until Troy recently moved to Fargo, where we're out of in North Dakota here. And I watch him code sometimes and I'm like, those are long sentences and words. I thought it was 0, 1. He's like, well, that's underlying. And I was like, oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I understand
there you go.
now.
Dude, so Fargo, North Dakota, first of all, fantastic football out there. Second of all, yeah, no kidding, right? Those guys are ballers. But and to have the dome out there, I mean, that's freaking sweet to be able to play in a dome and have
Yeah,
one of the best
for
college
sure.
football, the Alabama of FCS football.
Yeah.
But so North Dakota doesn't have many like logistics operations. Like if you look, there was a map that came out and it was like the top 100 logistics operations and the states or the regions that was a breakdown by. I'm pretty sure North Dakota had 0 in there,
Yeah,
like
they don't
that
have
area.
anything.
It sounds like you might be the first one to come out of that area, and you could blow up. If you hit 100 million in revenue, you're going to be up there in that whole genre of like the big time players. How's that feel?
And I mean, we're not asset based, so it is a bit different. But the next move for us is like, and this is probably 5 years down the road. But the next move that I want to do is everybody in the U.S. Wants to have final mile delivery to all U.S. zip codes, and there is North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin. Nobody services final mile out here. There's no facilities. Minneapolis is the only terminal, and that's in Minnesota. That's 4.5 hours from, or 3.5 hours from Fargo, and that Fargo's on the border. So like that's the main population center. But even through the current companies that exist out there in the marketplace, the $1 billion players, they don't service final mile in the Midwest up here. And so there needs to be some more assets and there needs to be somebody to do that. And actually, coincidentally, I won't name the business because it's probably not that public yet, but there's a business in Wisconsin that went out of business, filed bankruptcy. And we were getting calls yesterday from, some very large furniture clients, like names that you'd really recognize, saying, hey, we got referred. Maybe Rocketshipping can help us do deliveries in the Midwest. And technically, we're not really set up to do that. But I'm like, well, maybe we need to be. So that's something to think on for sure.
Sure, man. Well, hey, dude, I appreciate you coming on. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know that you got to put out some fires and you got a company to run over there.
The day-to-day, that's the grind.
But I just want to say thanks, man. Thanks for coming on. I enjoy talking to you. It's really cool for me because you see people's name and then you can't pronounce their last name, and then you see their profiles on LinkedIn, right? And you're like, okay, that guy's cool. He's got some stuff going on. He's got some emojis in his stuff. He's putting out some content. He's working hard. He's doing the thing. But then to get to actually talk to somebody through a webcam or through something like this, it's just a little bit different, a little bit more personal. And man, I appreciate it. It's cool. You're a cool dude. Sounds like you got something great going on, and I'm rooting for you. I wish you nothing but the best. And let's get on here again and chat it up once you got some more improvements going on and check back in a few months. Does that sound cool?
Yeah. Once we got Horizon, I'll come back. We'll talk about how it's going. So I appreciate it, Gunner. You're the man. I follow your content. Everybody should be following Gunner on Twitter too. It's some good stuff. So keep crushing it, and good luck at 12 Point, man.
All right, brother. We'll catch you next time. All right.
We'll see ya.
See you, boss.